Our virtual town tour starts in Hill End with a walk down Clark Street, seeing most of the sites on the eastern side of the street as they were in gold rush times. The tour uses a numbers system in succession to show the way it was in Hill End and surrounds. For a comprehensive appreciation, refer to my book, The German-Australian Called Holtermann, where there are a series of maps with photo locations indexed showing all you will need to see over the next 4 presentations. The heritage photographs were taken from 1870 to 1873. Alphabetical listing after the numbers indicate same site, different year, and different building but still on the same spot. Like any fast-growing town, buildings were replaced to keep pace with business growth. Clark Street is less than 400 metres long, and as the photos show, business space is at a premium. During the rush, there were 7 photographers that contributed to the Holtermann photographic collection, which comprised over 700 photographs of Hill End and area. Like a large jigsaw puzzle, we can piece together the past and view without distorting history. So much to see when a photo captures time. Not all locations were photographed, and a mixture of times emphasises a rough and ready start, followed by major upgrades as the rush expanded. About halfway down Clark Street, the aptly named Short Street, jammed with retail businesses during the rush, connects Tambaroora to Clark Street. Note an identification marker, Stephen's Fancy Goods Store on the corner. A look past Stephen's down Clark Street gives a good perspective as to how busy the town got. These businesses were many and varied. The main reoccurring commercial establishment was the hotel industry. At the height of the rush, the Hill End area had 51 registered hotels, 28 in the town of Hill End, with most located in Clark Street. I found it interesting that a number of publicans were women. For those who remember the old American Western television series Gunsmoke, the publican was Miss Kitty. It would appear the film industry knew the formula. While you see the town for a brief spit in time, I would like to reaffirm I have spent over half a century questioning history and formulating the way it was. This has resulted in a number of documentaries and books that thoroughly elaborate on the area's history. The DVD documentaries are The Golden Days, first produced in 1985, then upgraded in 2020 with new material and digitally enhanced original footage. Plus, in 2019, Gold and B.O. Holtermann. A slight doubling up of information occurs in both documentaries, as we briefly cover a topic in one presentation and then greatly expand coverage of the same subject in the other. They both complement each other, and although not as comprehensive as the hard copy books, they do explain a lot. The last building in Clark Street is again a hotel site. Off the end of Clark Street was located the Pullen and Rawsthorne Stamper Battery, which is where we end Chapter 1 of the town tour. Chapter 2 for the virtual town tour continues from the top of Clark Street, looking at the western side. A building of note is location 36, the Chinese connection. Heading back down the street looking to the right on our way to the Pullen and Rawsthorne Stamper Battery, we browse the goods and services on offer to a gold digger. Easy to get misled by unexperienced armchair historians, as without practical experience and local knowledge, a pile-on effect, I believe, has given the public a bum steer when it comes to assessing our golden past. A common misconception is the only ones that made any money in a gold rush were the businesses. A bit of a contradiction when you see the amount of businesses available, all supported by gold diggers, and a lot with leisure products like shooting galleries and bowling alleys, which strongly suggest an excess of money to spend. An estimated 65 tonnes of gold came out of the Hill End goldfield. Defies logic to have a lot of poor people with that amount of ready cash spilling out of the ground. The first thing to be lost in a struggling community is footwear, then a downgrade of clothing and hats. All I see is a well-dressed and presented population. And don't be fooled by the muddied streets. Before the streets, there were mine shafts, and what happens in wet weather if the shafts have not been backfilled and compacted properly? You get stuck in a mud hole. The photographers were freelance and offered services for a given price, so a storekeeper or resident did have time to prepare and pay the appropriate fee for a keepsake. The new wet plate glass negatives allowed for multiple photographs from one exposure. A print was sold to the customer, while Haltermann capitalised later by buying the negatives from different photographers. A continuing line of well-built substantial hotels mixed with the odd essential service fill what is now grassland with an odd fruit tree and broken brick to mark what has been before. Hotels had to by law provide hay and water for patrons' horses, and with horses and wagons we have blacksmiths for shoeing and wagon maintenance. A domino effect of business opportunities. It would appear the existence of one business went hand in hand with the next. Photo 63. The European Hotel ends our journey down Clark Street. Next, a quick look at the busy Short Street starting with location 65. In this street you could buy fresh Sydney oysters. Too much to explain here, you will just have to get the books. But yes, it was possible to supply fresh oysters. Nothing like high-end dining after a hard day's mining. This brief street connected Clark to Tambarura Street. Tambarura Street was nowhere near as busy as Clark. The two streets ran in close parallel to each other and started behind the War Memorial location of today, near the present-day hotel and general store on the hill. Location 72 provides an early look at the start of Tambarura Street before major development as we end Chapter 2 of our Hill End virtual town tour. Chapter 3 of our Hill End virtual town tour starts with location 73, a furniture and carpentry shop, before we continue down Tambarura Street past an early police station site, on our way to the Pullen and Rawsthorne Stamper Battery. At the intersection with Short Street we encounter Haltermann's Corner, which operated like an arcade using separate rooms as small individual shops. Similar to Clark Street, a great variation of businesses: chemists, banks, newspapers, hairdressers, photographers. The list goes on, but there is only so much that can be covered here. The real in-depth story is delivered in the books and DVDs. At the end of Tambarura Street still stands the mining registrar at location 82. Responsible for the official purchase of gold, lodgement of mining claims and settling of mining disputes. Heading back to Haltermann's Corner there is the still operating Presbyterian Church. A building of note beside the church was location 86, Hodgson's Store, where the famed Byers and Halterman specimen was photographed and held on display for 2 weeks before being crushed at the Pullen and Rawsthorne Stamper Battery. A 3,000-ounce piece that is still the world's largest ever known single mass of gold, which was an advertisement that shot Hill End onto the World Gold Rush stage. Confirmed by photographers and newspapers in the same street, for a short time, one happy and prosperous community bubbled along with plenty of investment and cash flow, at least until the bubble burst a year later. Location 98 marks the start of Tambarura Street on the eastern side, and things get a little quieter. A line of produce stores to service hotels and general workhorses. A street scene to show St Paul's Presbyterian Church opposite the present-day school, then a couple more businesses, before we see Location 103, which shows the school as it was year 1872, followed by an earlier school photo before we continue down to witness the usual mix of houses and businesses that made up the never-ending display we call the Hill End CBD. Some sites were continually moved to keep pace with development. Beside the Great Western Stores was the second site for the post office before it went in 1873 to the present-day location, which is also beside today's police station. We end Chapter 3 with location 111, Mark Hammond's house. Mark was part of the Byers and Halterman Gold Mining Company, and after Hill End went on to become mayor of what is now the Sutherland Shire. Chapter 4. Denison Street, further out to the east, is by comparison to the others viewed as a quieter, less built-up area, still with a mix of continual overflowing business proprietors. There were houses, churches, schools, and mining supply services, restaurants, all that comprised the full gamut of anything a self-sufficient major town for the 1870s could wish for. An overflow extension for added services and trades. An about face at location 117 as we turn towards Tambarura. Now it's time to head north from our present-day general store and Royal Hotel. Again, few of these buildings in this presentation remain. The present-day Royal Hotel is not visible in any of these close-up shots, but can be seen in an 1872 panoramic view of Hill End, as presented in our documentaries and books. Our Royal Hotel has its own story, as it was built in 1872, but not as a hotel, as a boarding house. It never became a hotel until after the rush in 1876, as the town shrunk and businesses relocated to follow population patterns. While the hotel and general store remain, all we are about to see has all but vanished into the ground and past. Where, you might ask? Fire was a great destroyer of buildings, and with a shrinking population, there was never a need to build a new building. Just move into another abandoned one. My parents built a new house in 1965 out on Warries Road. At the time it caused quite some local consternation, as most locals had never seen a new house built. It was not unusual for us to have an audience to watch and see how the house was built from scratch. On the other side of the coin, as the area changed from gold-seeking to rural farm blocks, houses were built, or should I say, relocated. Why travel a long distance along a rough, hilly dirt road to pay for doors, windows, walls and roofing material when you could go into Hill End or Tambarura and get it for free by pulling down a deserted building? Couldn't count the amount of outside brick toilets I saw as a kid on properties with numbers on the door because the doors came from hotels. Jock Stewart told me his farmhouse was an old store from Tambaroora, and I heard the same from many an older Hill End resident. So much was here, now 99% gone. It pays to mention there were many outlying hamlets and villages, and the town boundary was never a hard and fast line. Hotels and houses dotted the topography, no matter how seemingly unhospitable. Before we finish, we have to look south, past our famous Hawkins Hill, down to the lower Turon village on the Turon River, at location 145. Yes, a town where nothing or nearly nothing is left to tell the tale. The documentary After the Rush features this site as it was a major early crossroads for our famous bridle track. Back then, to the opposite side of Hill End to the north, location 148, the National School at Tambaroora. Tambaroora, where, like the rest, so little remains out of the 4,000-strong population that Hill End grew from. This site is mentioned in all the DVDs and books, and it is the origin of our area's settlement, and that is why the cemeteries are located at Tambaroora, because that was the site for first major population growth, where now the least remains. The main road to Mudgee from Hill End still runs true with the main road in the photos, with one stand-apart landmark, that being a lone red brick chimney, a remnant from the Hargraves Hotel seen in photo location 158. Now the chimney is a marker for gold panning tours. To finish, a turnaround from the north to glance back over the town to observe stick fences identifying Chinatown near Red Hill. We finish with the site 161, which, like most, has vanished. Seemingly major structures like this Wesleyan church melted back into the earth. I hope you have enjoyed this 4-part virtual tour around Hill End. Previews of our documentaries are included on this YouTube channel.